Today's topic is a brand new item of DLC from Caledonia Works, in the form of the London and North Eastern Railway J36 class, an 060 tender engine that's notable for being the first North British Railway locomotive that CW has modelled for TS Classic. But first, a brief history on the J36. Feel free to skip ahead to the timestamp on screen if you'd prefer to do so. What we know as the LNER J36 class started out as the North British Railway C class, not to be confused with the South Eastern and Chatham Railway C class. The Scottish Cs were designed by Matthew Holmes for freight work and first introduced in 1888. Most of them were built at the company's own Caledonia Works, but 15 were built by Neilson and Company and another 15 by Sharp Stewart and Company. At the time, the NBR needed more locomotives to cope with an expected increase in freight traffic following the opening of the Forth Bridge. Holmes's engineers were similar to a batch of Drummond-designed 060s built in 1876 and 1877, albeit with a level, instead of sloped, fire grate and more boiler tubes. The latter resulted in a greater heating surface. Between 1888 and 1900, a total of 168 locomotives would be built to Holmes's design. Between 1913 and 1923, the Cs were rebuilt with new boilers, cabs equipped with side windows, and safety valves relocated to be on top of the firebox instead of in the dome, as they were on a lot of Drummond engines. Personally, I think the C's original cab is very reminiscent of what you see on the Great Northern Railway Stirling Single and North Eastern Railway Long Boiler. In their original condition, the C-class had a boiler pressure of 140 psi, or 150 for the final 24 members of the class. The new boilers had an increased pressure of 160 psi. In 1917, while World War I was still raging, 25 members of the class were sent to France for service with the Railway Operating Division. Upon returning to Scotland in 1919, those 25 engines were named after battles or generals from the war. For two random examples, here are 646 Somme and a 621 Monroe. Instead of giving these engines cast nameplates, the NBR simply hand-painted names on their central wheel splashes. Personally, I prefer cast nameplates, such as those on the LNER B1 class 460, instead of the names being hand-painted, but each to their own. In 1923, when the NBR became part of the London and North Eastern Railway, the Cs were reclassified as J36, and had their numbers increased by 9,000. This resulted in multiple cases of a J36 having the same number as one of KiwiRail's DL locomotives. Case in point, 9763. In 1937, two J36s, namely 9714 and 9716, were modified with cut-down domes and chimneys in order to work on the Gas Ferry branch, an industrial line with a low bridge under a former Caledonian Railway main line. Unfortunately, the modified variants of 9714 and 9716 are not included in the J36 add-on. The first of this class to be withdrawn was LNER number 9676, originally just 676 under the MBR, as a result of accident damage suffered in 1926. General withdrawals began in 1931, but 123 J36s were still in service upon the formation of BR in 1948. Surprisingly, the J36s were the very last steam locomotives to run in Scotland, with the final two survivors, 65288 and 65345, not being withdrawn until 1967. Thankfully, one member of the class, number 673 Maude, has survived into preservation, and she's currently on static display at Bo'ness, having last run under her own power in 2002. Incidentally, Maude is one of only 3 Scottish 060s left in preservation. The others are Caledonian Railway 812 class number 828 and Glasgow and South Western Railway tank engine number 9. The J36 was released for TS on the 30th of December 2025, and she's available from CW's website for £20, or around 48 New Zealand dollars, at full price. Considering the sheer amount of work he did throughout the year, I'm hoping that Chris can get some rest whenever the opportunity presents itself. What follows is a convoy of all those engines released in 2025, but why I set up a Class 52 Western, of all things, to drag the convoy is anyone's guess. I don't have much to say about the modelling and texturing, aside from saying that both are done to the usual high standard that you can expect from CW. I particularly like the brass work for the safety valves, whistle and cab fittings. And I also like the wood panelling effect on the cab floor. This reminds me of some of the 00 scale models that I've got. There's a big selection of liveries included with the J36, depicting the class from their introduction in 1888 right through to retirement in 1967 and, in Maude's case, preservation. The selection is as follows. North British Railway Holmes Brown, 1888 to 1914. NBR Reed Brown, 1913 to 1914. The rebuilt C-Class and Reed Brown, dated 1914 to 1915. NBR Lined Black, 1915 to 1923. NBR Unlined Black, 1915 to 1923. Railway Operating Division Black. ROD Khaki. LNER 1923 Lined Black, with an ampersand on the tender. LNER Lined Black, 1924 to 1928. LNER Unlined Black, 1924 to 1928. A second variant of LNER Unlined Black, 1928 to 1941. LNER Wartime Black, 1941 to 1945. LNER Post-War Black, 1945 to 1949. LNER Post-War Apple Green, 1945 to 1948. BR Apple Green. Early BR Unlined Black with Gill Sans lettering, dated as 1948 to 1950. 4 variants of standard BR Unlined Black, 1950 to 1967. And lastly, 2 preservation variants of Maude, one in NBR Lined Black and the other in BR Unlined Black. There are 3 variants each of MBR Holmes and Reed Brown, one with only steam brakes, another with air brakes, like this one you're seeing here, and the third with vacuum brakes. Variants equipped with air brakes are also available for the LNER 1923 lined black and both LNER 1924 to 1928 liveries, but curiously none of the BR liveries. Meanwhile, one of the post-war LNER/BR apple green locomotives, 5211, only had steam brakes, while the other, 5330, was vacuum fitted. I've been told on good authority that steam brakes only work on the locomotive, so they're effectively the equivalent of the independent brake that you would see on an American diesel, and based on my experience, the J36's steam brakes are stronger than I was expecting. Meanwhile, vacuum brakes gradually work their way along the train, applying on one coach or wagon at a time, while air brakes apply on the whole train at once. Something to note on the LNER wartime black J36 is the blanked out cab sides, which were necessary due to blackout regulations in World War II. Said regulations remind me of a certain Dad's Army episode by the name of A Brush with the Law. The 1950 to 1967 BR unlined black variants have scripted tender decals that you can change in the scenario editor. You can choose to have the tender unmarked, display Gill Sans lettering, or have it show the early emblem or late crest. And you can also add or remove overhead warning stickers. At first, I couldn't tell the difference between V2 and V3, but I've since noticed that the only difference is the position of the top lamp iron. Meanwhile, V5 is a special variant with embellishments, as worn only by locomotive number 65288. This was the closest any J36 got to wearing BR lined black. As an aside, I recall seeing that CW are working on some North British Railway wagons, which were going to be included with the J36, but plans changed prior to the locomotive's release. The J36's ideal fire mass is between 780 and 790 pounds, so if the engine's working hard, you'll need to shovel coal pretty frequently. As for the water level, this is best kept between 70 and 90%, as advised in the manual. This locomotive uses SimNation's Locomotion 2.0 scripting, so she has the usual array of features that one can expect from a post-2023 CW release. The features include, but are not limited to, fire intensity synchronized with the exhaust beat, realistic steam chest simulation, simple mode, which is toggled with Control A, realistic adhesion with dynamic wheel slip scripting, (3D) firebox and coal, although you can't see much of it due to the door opening inwards, dynamic smoke particles, fluctuating water level depending on the route gradient, posable sight glasses, scripted tender tank and water level, animated valve gear inside the frames, sandboxes that you can refill, and, as always, Performance Mode Pro, which is toggled with Shift P. The tender tank and sandbox features made their debut on the Midland Railway Compound and Highland Railway Strath class respectively. Another interesting feature on the J36 is an adjustable safety valve volume, raised with comma and lowered with shift comma. I would have mentioned this in the Stanya tank video had I known at the time that the feature was there too. In any case, This is a useful feature for those who find it annoying when the safety valves are going off all the time. I've said words to this effect before, and I may as well say them again. Although I prefer to drive CW locomotives in advanced mode, it's good to know that I've still got the option to switch to simple mode if necessary. Out of curiosity, I wanted to see how fast the J36 can go, and for this test run, I only had a light load in tow due to A, the locomotive's power rating of only 2F, and B, the steep gradients with which you have to deal on the way to Stainmore Summit. In the end, I couldn't get 65233 Pluma to go any faster than 57 miles per hour. In the interest of fairness, I put the original condition C-Class through a speed test as well. In this case, I took locomotive number 757, not to be confused with the Boeing 757, from Glenluce to Castle Kennedy on Western Lines of Scotland. 757 was hauling a standard quick-drive consist, requirements listed in the description, and on this run, I got her up to 46 miles per hour. Both speed tests were carried out whilst I was trying to maintain the fire mass and water levels at what's advised in the manual. And now for some random observations made during my time with the J36. All variants with the rebuilt cab have a storm sheet modelled, although the sheet is only cosmetic. There's no tail lamp to light up the cab. You have to hold the reverse lock down when you move the reverser, something to which I haven't fully adjusted. The reverser rod is animated, as is the brake rigging. You can open the side windows on the rebuilt cab, and you can also open the porthole windows, but only on the rebuilt cab. In closing, I have enjoyed pottering about with the J36 from CW. The add-on may be expensive, but you do get an awful lot of variants for your money, and said variants can be useful across a wide variety of time periods if we ever get other suitable routes for these locomotives. If you like driving little 060 tender engines, then the J36 could be worth a try. Just be mindful of the different braking systems across the variants, which, in my case, takes some getting used to, especially since I'm not familiar with driving engines that only have steam brakes. With all the different variants that are included, this pack helped me to learn more about the J36 than I had ever previously known. Personally, I prefer how these locomotives look in their rebuilt condition, but it's still interesting to see how they looked when new in 1888. As for where I'd rate what is currently CW's newest add-on, I think I'll give it a 7.9 out of 10, and if you've stuck around to the end of the video, you win a music playing device endorsed by a George England locomotive from the Mid-Sodor Railway. It's the Jukebox.